Good afternoon, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Today, let's talk about the Mike Khader interview.
Ready wins. Fatality.
Good afternoon, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Khader interview. Is Mike Khader back? Also, let's talk about some anomalies property owners are discovering, leading to many questions about what's been going on in the building department. Join me. Happy Sunday, folks. Hope all is well. Happy Sunday. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Good afternoon, folks. Today I want to discuss the interview with Mike Khader, former city council president, who went on the Yonkers Voice to discuss his recent judgments in his lawsuit, his long ordeal that's been going on since 2021, when he lost to city council president Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy in the primaries. Mike Khader filed lawsuits against many individuals due to an article that was first appeared in the Yonkers Tribune. From there, that led an individual by the name of Ron Matten to write a letter to the city council in regards to what was being said in the article, what was being alleged in the article. And then that led the city council members to draft a letter to the Yonkers Inspector General, Liam McLaughlin, a man that Mike Khader once defeated in order to become the city council president. He then launched an investigation, and that was the end of Mike Khader's political career, for now anyway. Is Mike Khader back? Well, he's gotten some steam recently as his lawsuit, some of it has gone his way. Recently, two of the defendants in his lawsuits were ordered to issue retractions in regards to what they had said about Mike Khader. And so I want to talk about this. Let's hear what Mike Khader had to say, and then we'll go over that in a second. There's no volume. Thank you, Anthony. I'm going to try that again. I don't know why this does it. Hopefully it'll come on. Let me know if you hear some volume, if you don't hear anything now.
Mistakes are made. Sometimes we publish those articles. It's not that any of the articles were published with the malicious intent to hurt you in any way, shape, or form.
Yes, I do believe some of the articles were designed to show me in an unflattering light. And, in the Yonkers Tribune retraction, it states that. And it further stated that, they never contacted me for, a comment or to see what's going on. At the end of the day, this is what you would call a political hit job. And it was intense. It was consistent. It was effective. And, this carries damage that people don't understand. There's life beyond politics. I've always said that, holding office is a privilege. It's not permanency. No one inherits any office. And it's been a privilege to be the council president for the city of Yonkers, a city that I was born and raised in. However, where is the line? Where does it stop? You know, you want to criticize somebody in office for their vote, fair game. You want to criticize their policies, fair game. You want to politicize where they go, what they do, fair game. But where is it hands off? They come after your family, they come after your partner, they come after your kids, they try to attack your livelihood with intentional, not honest mistakes, intentional lies. There has to be accountability. Every defendant had something with it, everyone at a different degree.
Do you go around the person that you maliciously attacking around the person's residence with your car?
So yes, Mike Khader says, where do you draw the line, right? It's one thing that, you go after me, you go after some of the things I say, maybe, the way I've been as a city council president, you talk about my, policies or my platform, but to get nasty and then go after my family, that wasn't okay. And where do you draw the line, right? And I want to show something here because that happens, they go after your family. And this has been my issue. People say, Freddie, what's your issue with this guy from the Yonkers Voice? Is it the battle of the bloggers? No, it's not the battle of the bloggers, because like Mike Khader, if it were just about me, I wouldn't care. But where does he draw the line when he goes after my wife and he talks about my kids on a regular basis? But I was surprised that Mike Khader, didn't get an apology from the Yonkers Voice, because he's been someone that's gone after his own family, right? Here he's going after Mike Khader's brother, John Khader, and myself at one point. And he talks about that, Mike Khader. He goes after my siblings. They've called John Khader Johnny Kilo. They went after him when he put a post up with a shotgun indicating that he was a dangerous individual. So where does he draw the line? You're right, Mike. Where does he draw the line? And that's a question you should ask directly to the Yonkers Voice.
A lot of things are done with the intent. Now, I received some communication about Mr. Ron Matten, and people are saying that he's now a certified liar, okay? Because he had to do a retraction on things that he knew was a lie. Now, what do you think it was the motivation, Mr. Khader?
Well, you know what?
His motivation.
I don't know what his motivation was. But, one thing that Ron and I did, we had a very good, productive, private conversation. He apologized. I accepted his apology. We shook hands and we said, let's all move on. For what is intent and motivation, it will just require me speculating, and I don't think that would be productive.
Well, it may be not productive, but might be a lesson to others. Okay, other people that.
So Ron Matten was obviously one of the defendants. Ron Matten, who was the man who wrote the letter to the city council calling for an investigation. Ron Matten alleges that he never made, and he told me, if you go back to the letter, I never accused him of anything. I just said that there's this, article that's alleging these things, and that maybe there should be an investigation, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, we have to find out whether something is true or not. And so we have to mention it, right? And many times that's what I'm doing on my podcast, although I'm getting it from inside sources, very good, reliable sources who have been right. And, instead of going after the people putting out the information, why don't we actually say, hey, maybe there's something to it and maybe we should investigate, right? And so that's pretty much all that Ron Matten did. However, he was the main target, and as was Hezi from the Yonkers Tribune, who to me were the guys at the bottom of the totem pole. Hezi got his marching orders, and he got his marching orders from people that were not even mentioned in the lawsuit. People that should have been mentioned, people that actually were defaming Mike Khader, that were actually going after his family with mailers and text messages. These are the people that really set all this up and also paid for it. They cost a lot of money, these mailers. These are not cheap. It's like 10 grand each time just to mail stuff out. So who has that money? I doubt it was Hezi spending the money to put those mailers out. I don't think Ron Matten was spending $10,000 to put out mailers, to have them drawn up and printed and then mailed out. And I don't blame Rose Press Inc., which also was named in the lawsuit, because they're just a business doing what a business does, right? So let's go to another video here.
Sued the mayor. That means I'm suing the city of Yonkers. And what would happen is the city.
So this is right here in regards to Mayor Mike Spano. He's asked, what happened with the mayor. He was suing the mayor. The mayor was also named in the lawsuit. But the mayor, got off. The mayor won. The mayor, the city council, everyone but Ron Matten and Hezzy won pretty much, right? Let's see what happened here.
With the mayor, because the mayor was also named on your lawsuit, correct?
No, well,
please explain, because
yes.
The perception is that yes.
Yeah, well, my intent was never to sue Mike Spano in his official capacity, because ultimately, if I sued the mayor, that means I'm suing the city of Yonkers, and what would happen is the city taxpayers end up footing the bill. It was my goal to sue in the individual capacity because this was in the course of a political campaign, not in the course of official conduct. And there was a technical defect, and the judge dismissed the case on that technical defect, not on the merits. While I disagree with it, I accept the decision and I close this chapter, and it's, like I said, time to move on to better things.
Now, we know that you're a young man. And
some say, though, that Mike Khader actually just let the mayor off. He didn't really want to pursue it in order to make amends with the mayor, because it could benefit him down the line as he may be seeking to become the next city council president. And what people are telling me, the word on the street is that Mike Khader is hoping that the Spanos will support him in a bid to run against Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, who he also mentions in this interview here, and I'll play that in a second. And so what he did was he basically, by default, just allowed the mayor to win. I believe the mayor and his legal team had, submitted or entered a motion to dismiss, a motion that Mike Khader then did not respond to. So by default, the mayor and everyone else, city council, Rose Press Inc., were all let off the hook, except for Ron Matten and Yonkers Tribune, Hezzy, who both had to make a retraction. But again, the individuals that actually did the damage were not named in the lawsuit. And I'll get into that in a minute.
And I have asked you this many times before. What is in the future for you? You were in a little dormant state for a while, and we heard from you the other day in the big public light, the day that you went to the Yonkers City Council, and you spoke. You want to tell us about that day and what was the motivation?
Well, yeah, I was, while my appearances, while I was in at flag raisings and ribbon cuttings, you got to remember, to your listeners, I barely went to those type of fluff pieces when I was in office. So, while I wasn't around, I was still speaking to a lot of community leaders and my friends in labor and community residents. And, I was definitely abreast of what's going on. And again, we're here in my law office, Khader Law PC. So I've had a law practice, working on my practice, building it up. Everyone knows I have a family, focusing on them, because ultimately, they suffered, during the course of me being in office, and, I had to focus on them. Going to your comment, why I showed up to the council chambers, and I believe what you're referring to was the night there was a pay raise vote.
That's exactly what I'm
on the eve of Christmas, talking about. I went there for one specific goal: to call out and bring attention to what the council president has been doing.
So he starts off by saying, what brought you out that night? The just before Christmas, the Yonkers City Council were set to vote on raises for themselves, something that was very controversial. A lot of people were a bit disgusted by it, seeing as it was just after the elections. Now they're voting on raises for themselves without speaking to the people, as they did with the term extension, right? So why did you come out and say something after, pretty much being absent from, the scene for a very long time? And, he's saying, I never really did that anyway. I never went to the flag raisings or this, other fluff pieces, as he called them, but now he's wanting to come out and he had to speak on this, right? He had to speak on some of the things that he saw wrong with the city council. But what this suggests, and I think everyone can see that, is that Mike Khader is looking to make a comeback in politics. And in order to do that, he has to start making appearances. He has to start coming out. He has to start voicing his opinion, letting the people know where he stands or what he stands for. And of course, he's going to go and target the person he's trying to take out, which is the city council president, Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. And so he went there to address the pay raises, but also address Lakeisha Collins Bellamy in what he says is her taking advantage of the position, something that she's called him out on. But here she is now doing it herself, now that she's the city council president. And he goes into a little more detail on that.
She has been the biggest beneficiary of my defamation. There's a lot of people that have buyer's remorse with her winning the campaign. And if anyone knows me and they've been in contact, there is no bitterness towards the election. The next day I called her, congratulated her, wished her luck, and I specifically said, I need you to do well, because if you're doing well, then the citizens of Yonkers, the most needy, are doing well. And unfortunately, the only people that have been doing well is Council President Bellamy and her immediate family, while hardworking families are still suffering. Their cries for help are being ignored while self-enrichment is still going on. If you look at her campaign platform, what she accused me of, she's actually doing herself, from nepotism, self-dealing, self-enrichment. And, eventually she'll be held accountable and people see what's going on.
Do you have...
So again, he says that the only person that's benefited has been Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. She's been all about self-enrichment, right? Even though she called him out on quid pro quo and had accused him of nepotism and being self-serving. That's what she said throughout the campaign when she was running against him. But he goes, here she is now, all about herself, voting to extend term limits or introducing the legislation to extend term limits, voting on pay raises for themselves, voting on retroactive pay raise, the raise to be retroactive, right? So he's saying they're the only ones benefiting. But he also goes on to be a little more specific on what he's referring to.
Have any examples of nepotism in regards to the current Yonkers City Council president?
Just maybe a week and a half ago, they hired her husband as a Yonkers police department. And one must scratch their head to ask, yes, he took a test. He was an 85 on the civil service exam. There were over 500 people with an 85. What was the process? What was the methodology that he was one of the 85 over the 500 people that were picked? And I'll say, Council President Bellamy, don't explain it to me. Explain it to the 500 families that were overlooked, that their son, their child, their spouse was overlooked. What's ironic is a year ago.
Before he gets into that, so what he's saying there basically is that Lakeisha Collins Bellamy's husband got into the police academy, became a Yonkers police officer while only scoring an 85. Many candidates who took the test also scored 85s. Why was it that her husband was selected? Why was he specifically chosen out of all of these other candidates who also scored the same? And he's saying that's basically because she's Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, and that's a deal that they've made with her in order, for her to have done some of the things she's done, like introduce the legislation to extend the terms, voting on the pay raises, and voting on many of these zoning changes and other things that have been done in the city council. And while she once said that her husband didn't need a job because he had a good career, we see now that he's getting he's gotten a job with the Yonkers Police Department. And, not to bash Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, And this was something that I had mentioned right here on Basement Politics way before it happened. And in fact, she addressed it at the city council meeting when they were going to extend the terms. She addressed the fact that I said that her husband would become a Yonkers police officer and that she would then later on become a judge, which I think is part of the plan in this overall grand scheme that may include Mike Khader. Let's see what else he had to say.
At the term limits vote, she professed that my husband has a career. We don't need this. I will never sell out the vote. And what happens? 13 months later, it happens. You say one thing, do another. You know, people see.
Things do change sometimes. Maybe something changed and now she needs a different career now.
But fess up to it. Fess up to it. If you want, you know, yes, I advocated. But don't go on a high horse in your soapbox and profess ethics and transparency and then do another. You know, the residents are fed up. The residents see what's going on, and hardworking families are not going to stay quiet.
Now, Mike,
once they get to the 85 zone, they can pick whoever they want. The real question is how many who scored 90 or 95 were passed over just to get to the 85 zone, or worse, visited the crooked shrinks to be fraudulently disqualified, as Anthony DiMaggio. You know, I was thinking about this, and I'm not saying specifically Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy's husband. You know, this is the case with him. But as you mentioned before, Anthony DiMaggio, you know, it's not the rank and file officers out there in the street, you know, doing their jobs every day. But the issue is with the brass, right? And that's how they maintain a control over the department. And so in order for them to do that, they have to select certain individuals that they give special privileges, special considerations throughout their career in the police department. So I would imagine that he may be someone that's going to get promoted rather quickly, because once they got him in the position, you know, in the brass, they now can have him do what it is that they need, because, hey, remember, we got you here to begin with. And so I believe that's all form or part of their way of controlling things as well, you know, and getting people to do what it is that they need them to do. And so, again, going back to Mike Khader and the judge thing, I believe that there may be some plan, some strategy to get Mike Khader into the city council president's position so that Lakeisha could then move on to become a judge. I don't believe that Lakeisha, and I'm just being honest, Lakeisha, I don't believe that you really want to remain the Yonkers City Council president. Sure, you're going to put that energy out there. You can't let people know the real deal. But the reality is you're ready to move on. And I get it. You don't like it. It sucks. All the criticism, people looking into the Hatch Act, trying to figure out how is it that you're getting paid? And is it, you know, valid? You know, is there something, you know, unethical or illegal going on there? You know, in the way that you did, you know, you became city council president, also working for municipal housing, right? People are looking into that. And you don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with the criticism that you're getting like this from Mike Khader and others who question, how did your husband become a Yonkers police officer when there were others who probably should have been picked before him, right? And so you want to move on and become a judge. And maybe if Mike Khader plays nice and he gets the support of the Spanos, he can slide into that position. Or even better yet, if Mayor Mike Spano does decide to run for county executive and he actually wins, maybe Mike Khader will become the next mayor in a special election. And so this is all what's going down here in the city of Yonkers, right? Because politics is, after all about politics. But going back to the people that Mike Khader should have had in the lawsuit and the people that should have been the ones held accountable. The person that drew up this idea and this grand scheme to attack Mike Khader, to defame Mike Khader, to put out this information about Mike Khader and quid pro quo was his own cousin, Zahi Jerris. This was their strategy. Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy said it when she gave her speech at the Castle Royale, right? She thanked Frankie Jerris, the son of Zahi Jerris. She called him a genius as well as handsome, but she called him a genius because Frankie is a smart guy. Smart young man who does a lot of the strategizing along with his dad for many of the elected officials, right? And that's his, you know, his big asset. That is what he brings to the table, his intelligence and his ability to strategize and come up with plans to win, regardless of what that may be. If it has to be attacking people in the most disgusting ways, putting out mailers about them, creating lies, and they utilize the Yonkers Voice and the Yonkers Newswire to do that. right? And that's exactly what they did to Mike Khader. I know for a fact that it was Zahi Jeris who came up with the campaign to attack Mike Khader. And I also know for a fact that it was paid for by the administration. This was what was in a conversation that I was in with certain individuals. So it was a strategy of Zahi Jeris and Frank Jeris paid for by the administration. This was admitted to me by these parties in front of me. So I know for a fact how it went down. But yet the people that created the strategy to attack Mike Khader and destroy him and the individuals that paid for it were all let off the hook. Poor Ron Mattin. He had to do a retraction and he had to spend 15 grand defending himself on this lawsuit. So we need to know the real deal. I put it out there. This is not like, sometimes people say, Freddie, sometimes, that people think you're dangerous because they don't know. It's very simple with me. I keep it honest. I'm straight up. I don't BS. I don't tell lies. I call it like I see it. If this is what it is, then this is what it is. And that's what it is. That's what it is. The attacks, the nasty attacks, the accusations of cheating on Mike Khader cheating on his wife, the text messages that went to neighbors, the mailers and all that. That was the strategy of his own blood cousin. So why was he not named in the lawsuit? The same guy that gets upset when people talk about his political history and then wants to sue people is the guy that does this to almost everyone. He is in control of the Yonkers Newswire. He pays Brian Harrod. They paid the Yonkers Voice to attack people. And they did this to Mike Khader and his family. Right? So that's really what it's about. No, Zahi is an expert at keeping people off the ballot. That is true, along with the help of some individuals within the Yonkers Board of Elections, which needs to be audited. He isn't as strategic when it comes to the campaign. Look at the 6th race. They lost to Moranti. They lost to Moranti not because he's not good, but because Moranti had a good voter base. He had, he has loyal voters in that district, and they didn't know anything about Tim Hodges, right? And so Moranti's done a good job of keeping, himself relevant within his district, making sure that people continue to vote for him within that district. That is why they did what they did when they were redistricting his district. Remember how they split it? They split a certain neighborhood in half, giving some to Mike Breen and the others, they left with Moranti, causing the residents of that area to get upset. And then they had to edit the redistricting, right? And who was behind that redistricting? That was Zahi Jeris, in my opinion. Without a doubt, in my opinion, he was behind that. He was involved with Dr. Beveridge, a longtime political advocate or operative whose ties to sketchy individuals like James Sertival, right? They did this together, and they purposely, worked to get the 6th district to become more democratic, right? And that's why they put the migrants at the Ramada, right? They didn't want to really bring in a bunch of migrants to Yonkers, but it was good strategy to say, hey, let's bring in some, let's put them in the 6th district, right? Let's make this more democratic. And then hopefully we can get Moranti out. So that's what they're working on now. Khader for mayor and Freddie Vasquez for inspector general. Seriously, I would love to be inspector general. I don't know if you have to be an attorney, right? Mike Khader and Freddie both love Yonkers. I absolutely love Yonkers. I really do. And I go over where I grew up on Buena Vista, and has it changed? Has it really, really changed a lot? It's gotten a lot more crowded, a lot taller buildings, definitely a lot more different folks there. But I love Yonkers, and it's sad to see it's becoming truly the 6th borough. We labeled it unofficially the 6th borough, but it is a 6th borough now. It reminds me of being in the city now, especially when we're in the downtown area. And, this is causing problems for a lot of property owners. And I'll get into that in a minute because there's some sketchy things going on.
For a while now, I've been asking about the future, the plans. You tell me that you're not out yet. There is things coming. Is there anything coming in the near future that you want to tell us about? Or because I hear rumors. I'm on the street.
You're definitely out there, Ru. I see your videos. You're definitely
I'm on the
there.
street, and people are saying, "Watch it." Mike Khader is coming back, and I believe he's coming back. But coming back for which position?
Well, one, two, the residents, be it, the PTA moms, the seniors, I'm not coming back. I've never left. And I've said to you, I've said many times, publicly and privately, public service, to hold an elected office in the city that I love is a privilege. It's an honor. It's something that I don't take lightly. And I said, my time in public office is not done. I'm exploring the opportunities, but I assure you, when that decision is made, you'll be one of the first to know.
One of the first. What about the first?
The first.
You guys
are the first to know outside of murders and things along those lines. As a practicing attorney.
So I had to say this, and the person who issued the retraction is a person that very proudly says that he was the one who shut down Yonkers' voice. Don't be proud of silencing no one. If you are true American, let people speak. As long as they're not arresting you, intimidating you, stalking you, lying like you do, respond appropriately. Now, Mike, there is one last question I have to ask.
Sure.
This comes from Philip Armstrong. Not just to you, to know your opinion. In the city of Yonkers, not being produced for the people of city of Yonkers, who have an average income of 75K. New developments are being built for the 100K. What is your point? I get a point of view. I guess he means that, but I'm not.
Okay, I think that's.
He basically is asking him, what does he think about all the developments here going on in the city of Yonkers? Many of these apartments are, developments are really for people who are making probably $130,000, $140,000 or better in order to qualify. Meanwhile, the average income of residents in the city of Yonkers, the average household income is under $70,000. So who are these developments really for, and what does Mike Khader think about them? Which is something that's very important for anyone looking to be an elected official here in Yonkers.
That's a statement, and you asked me
to
comment.
It's a statement, and you want your opinion on this.
Well, listen, if you go down to Southwest Corridor, it's not the Yonkers that I grew up in. It's not the Yonkers where Yonkers Voice started. And in essence, there's nothing wrong with development, but we need to make sure that it's smart and makes sense. And the local community, the residents, are the biggest beneficiaries of any development. When I was in office, affordable housing, which remains a big issue. I was proud that, as council president, working with council colleagues, we passed a 20% affordable housing. While it was on the high side, it sent a message. The residents need help. Though I believe the number one crisis in this country, besides the fentanyl, is affordable housing. So yes, Philip, there is a lot of development, and we got to make sure, and I don't believe the residents are the biggest beneficiaries of that development, and we just have to see what the master plan will be to make sure that our residents are able to afford the city that they live in. We don't want them to move out.
And moving out is what many people are doing because they can no longer afford to live here in the city of Yonkers. As rates of rents are going up, the cost to buy a home is skyrocketing, making it impossible for people who are looking to become first-time homeowners to do so here in the city of Yonkers. As we get an influx from people from all over the country, many are coming from New York City with higher incomes and are buying homes at above market pricing because they want it. And therefore, they're causing the comps in the area to go up as well. But many people are having issues. Residents, people who have been living in the city of Yonkers for a long time, have had issues getting permits while others have not for some reason. And they're wondering what's going on. Why can't I get a permit for my pool while others are getting permits for their pool houses same day? One woman here was looking to buy a lot here in the city of Yonkers, but was told she could not buy it because it was not buildable. Or she could buy it, but she couldn't build anything on it because of the problems it would cause to the surrounding houses. However, someone bought the lot and is building or has built on this lot, and it has caused problems for the surrounding houses. But not just problems in terms of damage to their properties, but also in terms of police presence in this neighborhood. Police have been called due to arguments with this new neighbor and other neighbors. One neighbor getting his arm broken after being hit with a bat. What's going on in Yonkers? I have to share something and hoping to see if anyone else have encountered this from the city of Yonkers. About 15 years ago, I owned a home on Gladstone Place in Yonkers. Since then, I have sold the property to a family member, and there was a vacant lot on the corner of Clover Street and Gladstone Place. The previous owner tried to build on it, but couldn't because there was a no road leading to the property and couldn't get a building permit due to the fact that it wasn't buildable. Don't know the exact reasons, but it was about the structural integrity. We went to City Hall ourselves to find out about the building on this property, 15 years ago, and was told it was not a buildable piece of land. It would cause structural harm to the houses on the hill on Bellevue Ave and runoffs to the houses below on Gladstone Place and Pomona Ave. The sewer and water lines would cause damage to the surrounding properties. We also heard the same thing about the water table not being able to sustain a house there. Fast forward 17 years later, and a monstrosity of a house is being built there. So far, 2 of the homes on Gladstone have had severe flooding, my family included. The backyards of the homes on Bellevue have had all trees ripped out, trees that upheld the land strength. The houses infringes on another property's driveway so that they can have access to the new house. This house was built without a community hearing and is devastating to all the properties around. Please, someone tell me how the laws of physics and geology are changed in 17 years unless money didn't exchange hands under the table. My only guess is there are new building engineers and getting paid off for this new person. Yeah, and we saw this, right? Sam Borelli, who was recently fired. I did a podcast about a complaint that was filed with the Yonkers Inspector General by a man named Sam Dadal, who owns a company here, plumbing company here, who has complained that Sam Borelli has held up his permits, only issuing permits to certain individuals, sometimes same day or within a day, because they were getting paid. And he was purposely delaying other people's permits in order for his son's plumbing business to do well. So he was playing games up there. And this is something that I have spoke about from day one on the podcast. It is the reason why I created Basement Politics, because of the corruption within the Yonkers building department. Inspectors shaking people down in order to get permits and C of O's. Sam Borelli holding up permits for individuals' businesses on behalf of other individuals who were either competitors or had political issues. And that's what happened to me and my business, which is why eventually we had to leave our Lockwood location. And so there needs to be an investigation into the building department, and everyone in the city of Yonkers who's had an issue with the building department, who's had their permits held up for some strange reason, right, or another, need to come out and speak out about this. Reach out to me. Tell me about your issue, politicwithfred@gmail.com, because this, I'm sure, has caused a lot of problems for residents here in the city of Yonkers, for small business owners like myself who could not get permits, who spent a lot of money only to not be able to operate fully and make my money back. Some people have been waiting 2 years for permits, 3 years for permits. And who else should be responsible for this? Mike Breen, who allowed a man like Sam Borelli to be able to get the job because he introduced legislation to reduce the requirement for the position, allow anyone with a high school diploma to win that job. And so here we are. So if you've had issues with the, problems with properties, please let me know. politicwithfred@gmail.com. There should be lawsuits here, because there are businesses that have been shut down. I know people who've gone bankrupt because they couldn't get their permits and they couldn't open up their businesses. People who would end up opening up anyway because they couldn't wait for the building department only to get violations. It's not fair. Meanwhile, you got people who are connected getting permits same day, building on lots that are not buildable, allowing to operate without the proper fire systems that they required of me, allowing them to sell marijuana and other drugs without being shut down, all because they're paying certain individuals. That's what's happening here in the city of Yonkers. It's time for that to stop. So hopefully, if Mike Khader would like to become the next city council president, you have to be honest. Mike, I wouldn't mind getting behind you and supporting you, but you have to be honest, and you have to speak about the corruption that exists within the Yonkers Democratic Party, the corruption that is led by your cousin. your cousin Zahi Jeris, a man convicted of political corruption after he bribed the former majority leader at the time, Sandy Anabi, in order for her to change her vote on the Ridge Hill deal. Very similar to the Tasha Diaz flip-flop on the housing ordinance. Remember, Mike, when you introduced it along with Shanae and Tasha Diaz, the 20% housing ordinance, which you guys got passed, but the mayor vetoed it. And all you guys had to do was vote exactly the same as you did when you got it passed. But Tasha Diaz flip-flopped. Tasha Diaz is managed by Frankie Jeris, the son of Zahi Jeris. And so you have to speak on that, Mike, because the city of Yonkers and the residents, the voters deserve transparency. And anyone that's going to be elected to city council president or even mayor of the city must be honest and transparent with the people, regardless of what that shows. And if it shows that it's your cousin that's a part of the problem, then you have to expose it. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Have a beautiful and blessed week.
Freddie wins.
In another one, Mr. Lugo lied to me. And I don't vote for the person that lied to me. Thank you very much.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Shout out to my wife, Andrea Vasquez. I love you very much. And let's see what's going to happen here. She did well. She passed everything she needed to pass. When they threw her a curveball, she smacked it right out the park. Because she has substance. No fluff there. No political favors. No unqualified in our DNA. And by the way, I do have a master's in business from Iona College, Hagen School of Business. Why don't you look that up instead of making up lies? I know that makes some of you jealous. I'm Freddie Vasquez, and I ain't going anywhere.
Freddie wins.